Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is WildC.A.T.S #1 by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi, continuing on my Image Comics Revisited series. So, what can I say? This is technically the first Jim Lee comic book I've actually reviewed on my channel. One of these days I should do Jim Lee X-Men. There are a lot of good stories in his run, and it is a very obviously popular and important run in the X-Men series of comic books, but WildC.A.T.S was Jim Lee's creation when he jumped over to Image. I think he left full-time around this time to go to Image after having finished, I think, X-Men number 4 or 5, I believe. I think it's like number 5 or number 6 is his last issue doing X-Men. It was kind of a throwaway Omega Red story that was basically, my understanding, it was kind of a freaking dumpster fire, and then John Byrne came in to kind of clean it up at the end. But anyway, it is freaking Bob Harris on running the X-Men books. It was kind of a hot mess regardless. But WildC.A.T.S, Wild Covert Action Teams, was his superheroes team that he created for Image Comics. And what can I say? I still like Jim Lee's art, and of the books that I've reviewed so far, this is probably my favorite art-wise, just because I just like Jim Lee, and I have a lot of nostalgia for Jim Lee. And it is some good stuff, though. It does have Jim Lee's kind of signatures, I guess you could say. But the story, written by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi, oh man. You know, I'm reminded of something that Zach once said on his video, that his favorite universe is the Wildstorm universe. And I know Zach has like a really soft spot for Wildcats. And I kind of see why, because Wildcats literally reminds me of a lot of Richard C. Myers books. A lot of stuff happening and nothing really explained, and kind of all over the goddamn place. And just the attitude is exposition is lame. So we open up, we're in Antarctica, these guys are kind of talking in the Arctic Circle, and then they get this flash from this lady, and then they're kind of like, yeah, we didn't see anything. So then we jump over to here, and you get this Hellfire Club ripoff, who is kind of talking about some stuff going on, some freaking geopolitical bullshit. And then the lady shows up, flashes again, and then they're like, call security, and it's like, oh wait, no, she's gone. And then that's it. So we've wasted 2 pages, and I don't really know what's going on. Then we got this present thing. We get sort of this, caption narration of this guy, Jacob Marlowe, and he's kind of a midget. He gets run into by these 2 guys who, for whatever reason, find him in an alleyway and decide to mug him. Not sure why they would just mug a midget who's clearly like homeless and poor. You figure if you're going to commit a crime, you would do it on a rich person in New York City, but okay, I'll go with it, sure. And then this lady saves him and then says, you have great power, kind of does like this freaking Green Lantern diatribe with this guy. And then we suddenly get time shift again. Again, we've done like 1, 2, 3, like 3 time shifts. And he's still kind of a bum, but then he has this real play where he goes up the elevator, and then his assistants like clean him up, and now he's like a multi-billionaire or something like that, some Tony Stark type. It's not really explained how that happened between then and here, but just stop asking questions. All right, just go with it. The art looks cool. Stop asking questions. So we run into the same lady, and they're kind of talking about her dreams and everything, and how she's still having these memories of this orb thing that is like this MacGuffin that everybody wants to get. And in the meantime, we kind of get the introduction to the team. So this is Spartan. By the way, this chick is Void, and then this guy is Maul and Warblade. And normally, if you had like, say, Chris Claremont was, or maybe like, like more of a Jim Shooter-esque style thing, you would have kind of narrations kind of explain who these characters are, instead of just throwing them willy-nilly into this. But, whatever. Just stop asking questions. These characters are cool. It's kind of the gist of what I get from there. And then we scene jump again. What I've noticed about, Wildcats #1 is if it has a fatal flaw, it just doesn't want to focus. Like every single page, Jim Lee just wants to jump around and make like new characters. And the end result is there's not really a whole lot you can do to kind of clean this up without making it a bit disjointed. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't know, man. I think Jim Lee, he makes really great illustrations. I'm not so sure about understanding visual pacing and visual storytelling all that much, because this was something I noticed about his X-Men books too. Like the visual storytelling when Silvestri was on and Romita and Barry Windsor Smith and the other guys was a lot more clean and understandable. The Jim Lee books were kind of like a little all over the place and uneven. Like I feel like Jim Lee is better like doing finishes and having someone else do like the breakdowns. But anyway, we got this Deadpool ripoff, and this is the Cabal, and he kills off this guy because betrayal. And by the way, you get these two cards in the middle of this book. So there's Spartan, he has his background thing, and here's Voodoo, the other character that you're gonna get introduced. So apparently the Cabal's run by Dormammu, and it employs Deadpool. I'm just joking. I don't know who these characters are. It says Mr. Cassini, and then this is Providence. They're not really explained, so just kind of deal with it. And then this character is Gnome, and I don't really know what this conversation is about, other than to tell Jacob Marlowe and the Wildcats that this dude is after some chick somewhere in Georgetown who has the site. I don't know what the site is, and something named the Caribbean and a reunification, which isn't explained. So just stop asking questions and enjoy the book. I know I'm being a little critical here, but it's kind of like one of those things where like the art is objectively fantastic in this book. I love Jim Lee art, so I don't have a problem saying that. But yeah, man, dude, it gets rough right here. This section right here, which is the introduction of Grifter, and except for this freaking portrait mode right here. So the introduction of Grifter and Voodoo is in this scene, and it's pretty interesting. Voodoo's kind of like Danny Moonstar and Psylocke put together. And but I will say the writing here with Grifter is actually pretty decent, and you kind of actually get into the story. So anyhow, these people, the Dakota assassins or whatnot, come after her, and they chase her down, and then Grifter's got to put this freaking 99-cent Deadpool mask. I actually really like this character, but goddamn, this costume design is stupid. So they get into a big flash mob, and then we get this fucking bullshit again. But in this case, Jim has more restraint. Probably he doesn't use it as well as say Eric Larson. But essentially the news report is what cues Jacob Marlowe and the Wildcats in that something's going bad downtown. So Grifter kind of has to fight off the Dakota assassins and whatnot. And he actually eventually gets surrounded till, the Wildcats, so there's Maul, Void, Spartan, Warblade, etc. jump into action and save the day. Really cool art for the most part. I can't really complain. And Jacob Marlowe gets held up, and they're like, oh no, our midget leader, what are we going to do? And then this guy gets his head slashed in. And then we get another portrait mode. So then we get the introduction of Zealot, who is kind of in this early issue, she's like partners with Grifter, but they're not necessarily yet a part of the Wildcats. At least that's my interpretation and understanding when I kind of read through this story. So she's kind of like Samurai Lady, I guess, kind of like Spiral and maybe like Lady Deathstrike kind of put together. There's like obvious, influences of the X-Men on this book and on, Youngblood and on Cyberforce for the most part. All three of those books are really technically mutant team books, which is interesting. So anyway, they have like a round of introductions, and then, Voodoo, who's probably in the same position as we are, is probably asking what the fuck is going on. And Zealot is like, we'll explain all of that in due time. Well, I hope it's soon because this is the end of the book. So Coda Assassin Lady blows herself up, and then we're left on a cliffhanger where it's assumed that, or it's kind of implied that the Wildcats got killed, and then there's Dormammu talking about a bunch of stuff we don't know, and then this guy who we don't know as well, Shoots and Ladders. Like, that's the name of a very good Uncanny X-Men story. So we'll see in questions and answers. So essentially, it's all just a lot of flash to get you to buy the second book, which, you know, to be fair, you know, if you really want to understand what's going on, you're going to have to buy the second book. It's just unfortunate because, you know, if your goal was to get a story out of this first issue of Wildcats, sorry, you're going to have to go buy a whole bunch of other ones. And this is going to be something that is commonplace because Brandon Choi, this isn't the only Image book that he wrote. And this is kind of a reoccurring thing of just cliffhangers and, you know, subtexts into the story rather than actually telling you a story. So overall, what do I think about it? I would say I like the art probably the most out of the Image books. Yeah, even more than Mark Silvestri's Cyberforce, even though I like Mark Silvestri's art overall more than Jim Lee. But this one had, you know, it's Jim Lee X-Men. He pretty much translated his art over into this one, right? And it's hard to hate those books art-wise, right? Story-wise, I would put this above Youngblood, but definitely below Savage Dragon. I don't know if I would say this is kind of a tie with Spawn, because again, they're both basically the same. The first issue doesn't really, they have their flaws, but the first issue doesn't really give you a full story, so you're kind of stuck trying to find a full story. I think my biggest problem with Wildcats is everything just gets thrown at you, and you just have to, like, deal with it. You know, and the first 4 or 5 pages are kind of a slog, and honestly, like, God, they freaking suck. Not a good way to use your first 3 or 4 pages of a comic book, in my opinion. The back end of the book kind of makes up for it, but, you know, kind of like, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's like, it's very meh to me, right? Like, you know, it's Jim Lee, so, you know, if you're a big fan of Jim Lee, you know, you won't be disappointed. But if you're looking for, like, a really good story, I don't know. I mean, I heard later on Wildcats gets a bunch of other writers, kind of like in the same way that McFarlane tries to get a bunch of writers on his book. But personally speaking, I'm not super interested. You know, I don't need to read about these characters. I can just go read the actual X-Men books and get them, right? Anyhow, that's the video. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on Wildcats #1 or this review, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.